listen to the news today without hearing about the recession. You can't pass a gas station without noticing that the price of gas keeps going up a few cents. And every time you pick up a newspaper or turn on the TV, you're hearing about the housing and the mortgage crisis that is going on. So all of that can really get a person down if you listen to all that stuff all the time. Really get a person down. But what about the promise? Now Dennis, a beautiful, perfect reading, led me right into the master teacher, wrote in Luke 12. Okay, here's another way of looking at it. Observe the ravens, it is written, for they do not sow or reap, and they have no storerooms and barns, and yet God feeds them. Observe the flowers, how they grow, for they do not toil, nor do they spin. But I say to you, that not even Solomon in all his glory was arrayed like one of these. And if God clothes in such fashion the grass of the field, which today is and tomorrow falls into the fireplace, how much more is he to you, O ye of little faith? So do not be anxious, he writes, about what you will hear or what you will drink, and let not your mind be disturbed by these things, for worldly people seek after all these things, and your Father knows that these things are also necessary for you. But seek the kingdom of God, and all of these things shall be added to you. Do not be afraid, O little flock, for your Father is pleased to give you the kingdom. So we're going to take for a moment, if you will, these two opposing concepts, because that's what they feel like. And the idea of this rising economic crisis, because there's always a crisis in the human realm that is appearing, and the evidence of it everywhere. And so how does that feel inside when you're constantly reading and hearing and talking? And just take a mental note of that. And next, think of this promise made by one of the greatest spiritual teachers that, in a nutshell, is saying, don't worry, God's got your back. God has your back. That's what, in a nutshell, he's saying, which is a great affirmation that I use anyway. And how does that feel? See? So take a mental note of that. So knowing you are a creative being, knowing that the words you speak and the feelings that you have are backed by an invisible force that receives the direct impress of what you are thinking, and acts upon them. So where do you want to spend your life? What are you putting into that substance that we call the law of, it's the law of creation, the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect. It's the substance of the divine, which takes impersonally that which you think and speak and act upon, and places it, you place it, because you're creative, into this law, which gives back, through the law of attraction, gives back exactly what you're thinking, exactly what you're speaking. So that's what we're going to be moving into today in these demandments. So remember that this, what you are thinking will come back to you. It's the law. It's the way it works. So for the next 2 weeks, because this is a two-parter, so for the next 2 weeks, we will be focusing on how we can live in a space of knowing that God has our back. God has our back all of the time, 24/7. 24/7. God doesn't sleep. God doesn't sleep. In fact, we're going to go deeper than that by using this, what looks like scary times, because it can be very unsettling. It can be very unsettling. And use it as an instrument to intensify and deepen our faith. Because as you know, if you don't know, I'm here to tell you that through some of these apparent, it looks like really apparent, like going down, like scary situations in our life, When we turn to that invisible presence, to the higher power, to God, to whatever you want to call it, it is an intelligence that is just always creative and always there for us. As you do that, what happens is that your faith intensifies. You deepen in your faith and your conviction because you always have choice. So you get to choose, and that's what we're going to go through today, the choice of what you're choosing and if it's serving you. And we're going to give you some things to actually use where you can turn these kinds of what looks like negative situations around into something positive for your life. So today's talk is entitled The 10 Demandments of Abundance, Part 1. And that's not a typographical error. It's what we're calling it. We're calling them the Demandments because we're going to look at 10 states of consciousness, 10 states of being, and what we are demanding. And so if you want to be immune from the effects of a slowing economy, today we're going to explore the very first 5 of these demandments. And let me be clear, I am not demanding them of you. Joyful gathering is not demanding them of you. Religious science is not demanding them of you. But the universe is. The universe is. These are things that get us into spiritual alignment with the eternal substance that I spoke of, which is immutable, and that is forever available, and that feeds the raven and clothes the flowers. So here are 5 of the 10 demandments, and you don't have to write them down, but we'll have the tasks afterward. Each demandment has with it like a spiritual practice that we're going to call a task. So the first one is, it's about taking a permanent recess from recession. So this is a way of us maneuvering through this world of this human experience that we're in and making it more pleasant, making it serve us, making it serve us. So the first one is, thou shalt make no graven images of lack. In other words, do not focus on lack and limitation. The anticipation of lack. How many of us go into the future and think about, oh my God, and we go into that whole worry thing in the future. So do not anticipate it. Of not having enough money for anything. Or of creating, because what that does is it creates the very thing that we don't want. We're creating what we don't want. So it's a cycle that we can get ourselves out of. We can do this. But it's all based. Lack and limitation is based on the belief that there is not enough. That's what it's based on. And in science of mind, religious science, new thought that we are here, we're telling you that this is an abundant universe. There's more than enough of everything. But it's your belief that brings you in alignment with it, that spiritual belief. And so we have an example. If you look at a baby who cannot walk or talk yet, you don't think, well, that baby is never going to walk or talk because he's not currently doing so. Okay? So you too must not think of yourself as being without, simply because it might look like at this moment you might not have exactly what you desire or want in your life. Just like the baby. You know the baby's going to walk and talk. Well, have that same belief about yourself and abundance. Yes. Stop thinking that there is only so much financial abundance to go around. There's more than enough. There really is. There's more than enough. With every one of these demandments, you're going to have an assignment. And I often, have little assignments after the talks, and I know that most people don't do them, or they forget about them, and fall asleep again, but that's okay. But these ones you're going to really want to do. You're going to want to do these for yourself. When some lack or limitation wants to get your attention, whether it be a personal situation or yourself, whether it is something you read or something in the paper or something in the news, I want you to think about this little old lady as an example and what she did down south. This little old lady would sit on her front porch on her rocking chair, and she was known as this miraculous healer. And people would come from all over and tell her about their woes and their troubles and their illnesses and all these different problems and situations that they were in. And she would sit there in her rocking chair rocking, and she would not say a word. Just smile at them. And eventually they would leave, and lo and behold, everything would be healed. They would be healed. And so a newspaper interviewer, reporter, heard about this woman, so he went to do an interview with her to write about this miraculous woman and her skills. And he said, "What do you do? What is it that you do that heals these people?" And she says, they tell me, she's rocking in her chair, they tell me all their problems, all their sorrows, all their woes, and I just simply think to myself, tain't so. Tain't so. So what is she doing is that she's using something that we learn and we study about. We deny situations. We absolutely deny conditions. We deny them from our consciousness. And that denial in and of itself is very powerful. We say, this situation has no power over me. She's saying, just simply, she doesn't even recognize it. Tain't so. So, the first task then, our first assignment, is that whenever you feel that your attention is turning towards lack and limitation, say to yourself, tain't so. That's number one. I deny this having any power over me, and then move forward. So that's number one. Second demandment, thou shalt not speak the word of lack and limitation. The Bible says, declare a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. Declare a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. Only claim what you want. If you say, I haven't got enough, you may be very, 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 very sure that you will never have enough. Because the law is responding and will give you impersonally, without judging, exactly what you put into it, what you think, what you say. Okay, so here's some words that we can work on eliminating from our vocabulary, and then obviously from our thinking. I can't afford it. I don't have enough money to do that. I shouldn't spend the money. This one makes me crazy. I am on a limited or fixed income. I've heard people say that. And it can look that way, you know, on paper and stuff. Anyone that knows me knows I just don't do a budget.
Ain't so.
I don't do a budget. That's why I have a treasurer and a bookkeeper and an accountant to do all the numbers. But it's one source. There are so many channels. We don't know where the abundance, where the money can come from. It can come forth from so many outlets. So to be open, you know, so you have a certain amount of money a week to live on, but there is always more. There's always more. So that's a new belief we can start establishing. And here's another one that might seem innocuous. It might seem innocuous, but it really isn't. It's very powerful. Is I hope I can pay all my bills this month. I know no one in here, so I hope I can pay all my bills this month. Well, listen to Ernest Holmes' comment. He wrote something in the Science of Mind magazine many, many years ago. He founded it in the 1920s. And he wrote this in his column on inflation and economic news. And this is what he says about that. I hope I can pay all my bills this month. Is that your attitude and word about money? Is it the feeling you share with your family and friends? Is it the idea that roams around in your mind at night when you contemplate finances? If it is, I know that your motives are the best, he writes, and yet there is a subtle, destructive concept hidden in your hopes. Hope implies your belief that things might not work out. The possibility that your intentions may not be fulfilled. You are not dealing with spiritual truth, he says, but with fear and uncertainty. If you truly believe in abundance, and unlimited supply, there is no hope that your bills will be paid. You know they'll be paid. When you consciously watch for limiting words coming out of your mouth, you can start to weed out all of these limiting thoughts that just, we're not even aware of it. I know Mary Morrissey in Joe's favorite class, Prosperity Plus, says, notice what you're noticing. So take a break. Notice what you're noticing, because we're always thinking. Our brain doesn't stop thinking. We're always thinking. We're always thinking. So notice what you're noticing and see if it's serving you, if it's limiting you or expanding you. So here's your spiritual practice for that one. Pay attention, notice what you're noticing, and weed out those words of lack and limitation. When they're coming out of your mouth, you're going to feel it. As you become aware of these things, you start to feel it in your physical body. And so then it doesn't feel good. And so then, wait a minute. God has got my back. God is my source and supply. I believe that. So it's deepening our faith, deepening our trust in that. So number 3, the third demandment. Thou shalt trust the promise of abundance. And there's an old story about a man who was afraid to fly on an airplane. And one day he found himself unable to avoid this any longer. He had to fly. So nervously he boarded the plane, and he was met by a friend who then inquired, how did he do on the trip? How was his trip? And he said, well, I was able to relax a little, but I want you to know I never did put my full weight down. And in that same column, Ernest Holmes wrote about that. He said, do you ever find yourself in a state of continual anxiety by never putting your full weight down with your feelings about money? Forgetting that the universe is already supporting you? Of course you can keep your anxiety as long as you wish, but you can also let it go. Trusting that spiritual law will bring you the equivalent of your belief about money. Say this and make it your belief. I trust life. All that I need comes to me. Let's all say that. I trust life, and all that I need comes to me. And that's a great affirmation. The meditation guru, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, was once talking about, and I remember reading about this, about a very large and expensive world peace project that he was putting together many years ago. And he envisioned this grand plan. And someone said that, where's all this money going to come from? And without skipping a beat, he says, from wherever it is at the moment. It's all, isn't it always? It's not, well, the government will print out more money. But that's, but there's always enough. There is truly always enough. If that is our belief, there's more than enough. There's enough to share and spare. All that I need is provided. All that I need is provided. I trust life. Now, that's letting go and trusting the power of abundance, stepping out in faith and trusting that the universe will pave the way for you. And the only way we can really do this is by doing it, by actually practicing it and believing at the same time that the universe is providing. I'm telling you, I'm doing that right now, and it's amazing. It's an amazing process because the universe does provide, and it does come from so many different channels. You can't plan those hows. You cannot plan, I say that, but I really mean it. You can plan the whats, but you can't plan those hows. And you don't want to get involved in planning the hows because God's vision is so much better and bigger than anything that we could hold in our own minds. It's amazing, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, and it's natural. It's the way the universal flow of life works. So, test number 3 is to breathe and let go, put your full weight down, and make your mantra for the whole month. I trust life. All that I need comes to me. I trust life. All that I need comes to me. Number 4, thou shalt listen and follow Spirit's lead. So, one of the things that I hear in a lot of crises people say is, I don't know what to do. You know, we get to that place where I don't know what to do. And I'm sure that everyone here has reached that point at some time or another in their life. I know I have, when I would then ask, I don't know what to do. It's kind of like saying, I of myself can do nothing. The Father within that doeth work. I don't know what to do, but I know the divine guidance within me knows what to do. So I follow that. That's where I go for my guidance. Because I know that that will not lead me astray. That will bring me into alignment with these spiritual truths that absolutely work. And if you have ever asked and listened and been guided to a course of action that was exactly right for you, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is that divine right order. Everything it takes place in its perfect time. Remember, there's no time and space in the divine intelligence of God. There is no time and space in God. We have time and space, because we need that to function in the human realm, but there isn't any in God. So you might, sometimes this guidance doesn't strike you like a thunderbolt. It might be just a series of events that lead you to all the right places. You know, and then in hindsight, when you look back, you go, they're all lined up because I let go and I let God. Let go and let God. What happens when we stop? This is what happens when we stop long enough to listen. To listen. Listen to what? To the inner voice, to that inner voice within us. The inner voice whose pleasure it is to give you the kingdom, to give you all that you need, want, desire. There's never, you're not asking too much. There's never too much. That doesn't exist. I know that in our Roots of Science of my class, that we had a really wonderful, this week, we had a wonderful discussion on intuition and how powerful and strong and clear that voice is when you learn to recognize it, and how it never leads you astray. It will always lead you to a place of the perfect outcome, the perfect results, the perfect direction. The perfect direction. So this is what happens, you know, when we stop and we listen and we follow. If you need guidance in your life with decisions or ideas on how to prosper, ask, listen, and then follow, because you will be guided. Thomas Troward wrote, the interior voice, this is from the Roots class, Thomas Troward wrote, the interior voice is heard strongly and persistently. And when this is the case, we do well to pay heed to it. And Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, there is one mind common to all, the one miracle which God works evermore is in nature and is imparting itself to the mind. And by lowly listening, we shall hear the right word. Sometimes we can't hear because the answer we are getting isn't always consistent with how we think it should look like. Ever do that? It's got to look a certain way. This is the way it's supposed to be. Well, maybe there's a greater good waiting for you if you just let go and listen and follow that intuitive voice. That is your true self. That's your essence of goodness, of divinity within you. That is your eternal self, that essence of God. And it's working through you, imparting to you all you need to know, all the guidance, everything you need to know. So task number 4 is to open your heart and mind to spirit. And then listen. Listen to that intuitive voice. You'll know it. It's usually, according to our class on Thursday night, very powerful and strong. So follow it, trusting it, knowing that if it's taking you out of your comfort zone, good. It's time to stretch a little. Time to expand a little. We've got to move out of our comfort zones to do that. The 5th demandment, thou shalt regularly attend to forgiveness. Can't get away from that one. Very simple truth. Very, very simple. Unforgiveness blocks the flow of good in our life. It does. We talk about forgiveness here often, and it's just as relevant in the discussion about prosperity as it is about loving relationships. Unforgiveness will block the flow of God's good, of abundance, of the law of circulation cannot operate if we are blocked by holding anger, resentment, unforgiveness of any sort in our energy field. We block the flow of prosperity and everything else in our lives. If you're having trouble with that whole forgiveness thing, some people get stuck. We are offering the very powerful radical forgiveness class. It's not till December, but backed by popular demand. Anyone that's taken that class will tell you that it frees up so much energy. Really does free up energy. And sometimes we need help. We need guidance. We need group. We need people with us who are speaking spiritual truth about letting go, letting God, and forgiving. We do it. Remember, we do it for ourselves. And we most certainly do it for ourselves to unblock any stuck energy. That resentment and anger will keep you in, it'll keep it in place. It'll keep absolutely that block in place. So we got to let go and let God. And if we already talked about the advertisement for that class in December. So, every evening before you go to bed is a good spiritual practice. It's actually the task number 5, is that every evening before you fall asleep at night, just say to yourself, who have I kept out of my heart today? Who have I kept out of my... And then bless and forgive them. Bless and forgive yourself. Bless and forgive. Who have I kept out of my heart today? That's number 5. That's your task, if you will, for number 5. So there you have the first 5 demandments. Okay, that's our first 5 demandments of abundance, part 1. We'll get part 2 next week, and related tasks. And so here's a summary of the tasks that I just spoke of. 1, turn your attention. When your attention turns to lack and limitation, you will say to yourself, "Tain't so." Number 2, pay attention and weed out words of lack and limitation from your vocabulary. Number 3, breathe and put your full weight down in the promise of abundance and make your mantra, "I trust life, all that I need comes to me." 4, open your heart and mind to spirit and listen, that intuitive voice, and then follow. Number 5, every evening before you fall asleep, ask yourself, who did I keep out of my heart today? I bless and forgive them. And so now, if we do those things, we are on the road to taking that permanent recess from recession. But we're on our road. We're on our way on that road of taking that recess from recession and any other that may come along. And I'm going to close this talk with a reading that I absolutely love by Ernest Holmes. And so however you want to take this in. It's called "The Gifts of God Are Mine Today." This is in his Science of Mind book, and if you want to write down where it is, if you like it so much, It's on page 556. 556. So here we go. It is the Father's good pleasure to give me the kingdom of heaven, harmony and abundance. Today, God opens to me the blessings of the infinite and eternal treasure, inviting me to dip deeply into it. As I believe in my heart, so it is done unto me in all things. As I ask, so do I receive a full measure unto my faith, pressed down and is running over. These and other divine promises and assurances sing in me. The still small voice reminds me that all that the Father hath is mine. This day I listen deeply to that still small voice and believe its promises. I fear nothing, neither lack, limitation, disappointment, nor distress of any kind. For it is not the Father always with me. It no longer matters to me what the appearance of today is or what has gone before. Today is new, and I am newly awakened in it. And I believe with dauntless faith that my good in full measure comes to me from God today. I now believe that it is indeed the Father's good pleasure to give me of his own bounty. I know that God gives as I ask, without question or limit, and I am ready to receive. The gifts of God are mine today. And so it is. So